My guest at this time is Grover Norquist. He's the president of Americans for Tax Reform, and he joins me now not only to talk a little bit about what he believes tax reform has accomplished here in almost the past year since it passed in December of 2017, but also what Democrats would plan to do on tax policy if, in fact, they're able to regain the majority in the House, the Senate, or both. And Grover, thanks so much for being with us.
Good to be with you.
Real quickly, some folks, most folks actually, think we got a pretty good jobs report on Friday. 250,000 jobs created in October, 3.7% unemployment. A lot of different explanations for why that's the case. How much of the credit do you think belongs with the tax reform from last December?
There are two drivers of economic growth in the United States. One is the deregulation announced by Trump and the Republicans across the board, just getting the government out of the way in 1,000 different little places, and it adds up to a big deal. The second, and you saw that in energy production, which has been booming. The second part is the tax reduction, $500 billion, $500 billion, $500 billion has flowed back from American corporate earnings overseas to the United States. Another trillion is coming. We've seen massive new investment because we cut the corporate income tax. And now the United States is a much better place to invest in and create jobs. So both of these are driving strong growth moving forward, not just now, but every year into the future. This is a big deal, and it's you saw the more jobs created this month. You've seen 3% growth after inflation, more than inflation, 3% real growth in wages. That hasn't happened in 10 years. 10 years, we've never seen numbers that good. So those are largely the tax cut plus the deregulation.
Well, let's talk about what the Democrats want to do now. And obviously, even if they win back the majorities in the House and even the Senate, President Trump's still there. So they'd be looking at vetoes on these things. But let's go through them. First of all, a 30% corporate income tax hike. We know that it just dropped in the tax reform bill from about 36% down to 21%. What do they want to do with the rate, and why?
The leading Democrat who would take over the Budget Committee says he wants to take it to at least 27%. Which is pretty bad. It makes you higher than France, higher than Germany, higher than China, higher than communist China, but add 4% because we have state and local corporate income taxes. So we're really 31%, which would make us highest in the world again. Undoing everything that we've done that to help bring American companies back into the United States, dollars into the United States. It would reverse much, if not all, but much of the growth that we've had, and you would slam on the brakes. It's amazing that a Democrat was foolish enough to tell everybody what we all know, which was every single Democrat voted against that reduction in corporate taxes and the millions of jobs it created.
Other taxes they want to hike, personal income taxes and the small business tax hike, which would be back up towards 40%. What's the impact of that?
Well, we've had very high taxes on smaller businesses because many Subchapter S corporations or pass-through companies, as they're known, is a small business, a pizza shop, a shoe store, but it runs through somebody's personal income taxes. So they actually pay higher than the corporate income tax. Smaller companies are paying higher marginal taxes than General Motors if they're not incorporated. We fixed much of that. We exempted 20% of the income that they make if it's the equivalent of corporate income, business income, because we want that to be saved and invested in the company to create jobs. 28 million smaller companies are eligible for these reductions. We'll see definite reductions in their taxes. And that's the community that's really been out there creating jobs. Smaller companies, millions of jobs being created. And those 28 million companies employ about 70-plus million people. So these are small companies, but they add up. And this would be devastating to the smaller business community. And I think that's going to be one of the bulwarks of the votes for the Republicans. If anybody works for a small business, voting for the D's is slitting your wrist this year.
Let's talk about the death tax, also known as the estate tax. That seemed to have been solidified in recent years, but the Democrats want to reopen that. What do they want to do?
Yeah, tax reform abolished almost all the death tax. Tax reform abolished almost all of the alternative minimum tax, and the Democrats have said that they want to breathe those back into life to hit everybody. They're two of the least popular taxes in the country because people recognize how unfair it is to say that you get taxed again and again and again on the same dollar, and then if you're stupid enough to die, they want to steal up to half. I think that this is just something the Democrats really, really, really believe, that they should keep taxing every dollar whenever they get a chance to take a look at it, and they love the idea of taxing dead people because they can't vote.
Let me ask you to get your reaction to what the likely counter-argument would be to most of what we just talked about. They would say on the personal income side, when you refer to 39.6 or the corporate tax rates or even the estate taxes, that those are taxes that the super rich really worry about. So the Republicans are all about giving big tax giveaways to their corporate friends and the super rich, and that's who really benefits from here. What do you say?
Well, that's what the left says all the time about all tax cuts. This tax cut reduced for people who have the median household income, the middle household income, about $54,000. Their take-home pay at $54,000 jumps to $57,600, up by $3,287 take-home pay increase from the tax cut alone. This is for the median income family, couple, two people married and two children. That is a substantial tax cut, and it's strictly middle income. If you make less than $10,000, your taxes went down 55%. If you make more than $1 million, they went down 2.3%. If you make between $20,000 and $30,000, yours went down 20%, $30,000 to $40,000 down 10%, $40,000 to $50,000 down 8%. Again, over $1 million down 2.3%. So the largest tax cuts went to lower income people. And if you want to know who's now paying the bills, millionaires who were paying 19.6% of all federal taxes now pay 20.2%. They're paying more of the bill. And people who earn less than $50,000 were paying 4.2%, now 3.9%. So people who earn less than $50,000 are paying less of the total burden on taxes, and people who are millionaires are paying more. And this works because of economic growth at both ends of the income spread.
One more topic on tax hikes that the Democrats would like to do, and it's in several different forms, and that's on guns. Danny Davis, Democrat from Illinois, looking to double the federal excise tax on pistols and revolvers from 10 to 20%, nearly double the federal excise tax on shotguns and rifles, and nearly quintuple the federal excise tax on ammunition. I have not heard this reported virtually anywhere other than from ATR. What do they have in mind here?
Well, Hillary was talking about this during the last races, that she wanted to use taxes on gun owners as a way to drive people out of the ability to have their Second Amendment rights actually recognized. You can't say to somebody, oh, it's legal, we're just going to tax it. And there's nothing, this is an opening bid, by the way. The Democrats pushing this tax on ammunition and guns. If they get it at all, they'll come back and do more and more and more. There was in Guam, which is a territory of the United States, they had a $1,000 gun tax they put in. Now, they had to pull it back because of the outrage. But if you say to somebody, a gun costs $1,000, you've just told every lower-income person in the country and every middle-class person in the country, you never own a gun. You don't have a Second Amendment. Now, Bloomberg, the rich guy in New York who wants to confiscate everybody's guns, he has, he's got billions and billions of dollars. He has armed guards he pays. You don't have armed guards that you can afford to pay, so he doesn't want you to have a gun because your life isn't as important as his is, and he deserves to be protected, and you don't. This is their effort to say, we know there's a constitutional amendment, we don't care, we think this is our work around the Second Amendment. If you could do this, you could put a $1,000 tax on every newspaper, and the New York Times and the Washington Post disappear, and you go, that was just a tax. That wasn't an attack on the First Amendment. I don't think they'd view it that way.
Wow. Grover?
Or should they?
Fascinating, and we want folks to have as much information as possible heading into Tuesday. Thanks very much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Okay. Vote as if your tax burden was up for grabs, because it is.
Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. I'm Greg Columbus reporting for Radio America.